Carrie Fountain.
And so for the past, since January, we've been involved in this incredible project, REVEL Unclassified, in which we bring art and music and poetry together. And so I am so pleased to welcome one of the most fantastic poets that we've had to date. Carrie Fountain is with us today. Please welcome Carrie. Do you mind if I use one of these?
Yeah, go for it.
I won't move any of the music. I won't bother you.
They're
Oh, there's one there. Okay.
with a dumbbell weight attached to the bottom of it.
Thanks. Thank you so much to REVEL for having me, and Carla, and that was just such lovely, really lovely music. I am a poet, but tonight I'm actually going to be reading I'll be reading in two sets. I'll play a little bit more music after this. So I thought I would start by reading a short section from a novel that I will be publishing in the early part of next year. It's a novel that's set in a small town in southern New Mexico, and it is a novel for young adults. The main character, what you need to know about the scene I'll read is the main character, her name is Miranda. Her mother has left 10 years ago to join a religious cult, and she lives alone with her father. She is best friends with a girl named Sid, who a few days before this scene was like the superstar of the town, was waiting to hear from Stanford whether or not she was accepted on early admission, just a real superstar. And she left a note saying, "I'm gone, I'm not missing," and left. And so this is part of the mystery of the book, is where she's gone and why. So this is sort of like 3 days into Sid being gone, Miranda's freaking out, and the characters that you sort of need to know who come up in this little scene are Nick is a boy who she's been obsessed with since she's a freshman, who stood her up on prom night the year before. So they haven't spoken to each other for like 8 months, and she's just heartbroken. And Will is she has French class with him, and also another character named Will, who is really into fan fiction and also is in their French class. I think that's all you need to know. Oh, also Ray and Tanya are Sid's parents, but I think that's probably apparent. So this starts sort of like right in the middle of her crisis. By Wednesday, I'd made one crucial decision about my life in the new normal of Sid's goneness. I was not going to become the kind of person who ate lunch alone every day in her car. Becoming that person would have been easy for me, and I knew I had to fight it from the beginning. So I made my way to the cafeteria and forced my chin up and braced myself for the barrage of questions. But by then, only a few people stopped to ask me about Sid, and most were really sweet about it. Everyone was as stunned as I was that Sid had run away. For a couple of days, I ate lunch with Marcy Ellis, a Mormon girl I'd been friends with in elementary school before Sid came in the 3rd grade and the two of us left poor Marcy behind in the dust. Tall and skinny and friendly to the bone, high school was her natural habitat. It was her Goldilocks planet. She wasn't super smart, but she was talented in the art of being a person. And so naturally, Sid despised her. "That poor thing," she said once after Marcy had stopped to talk to me in the hall. "She doesn't even know she's straight up peaking in high school." Marcy and her friends carved out the same spot at the same table each day for lunch. Their jokes were shockingly lame, and when they prayed before eating, their prayer was like a giant humble brag, so low-key and sincere it drew attention to itself. The whole time I ate with them, all I could think of was how I described the experience to Sid, how she'd gobble it up, throwing her head back and cackling. Somehow, eating lunch with Marcy and the Mormons, I felt like an awful person and a total loser at the same time. It stunk, and it made me miss Sid like hell. I'd never wanted her back so much as I did when I was watching those strangers pray over their bags of Doritos. On Friday, I hid from the Mormons and avoided the cafeteria in general, but I didn't return to my car. I decided I'd take baby steps. I escaped to the abandoned patch of concrete in front of the band room with Will Carey, who took secret drags from his vape pen while I ate my sandwich. He was happy to have me join him, and it felt good to get away from everyone for a half hour, to escape into the details of Will's excruciatingly complicated fan fiction. But it became clear before I'd even opened my Sprite that Will had abandoned his obsession with fictional characters and had replaced them with a real-life human being. And who was this human being? That tall guy with the ponytail in our French class. Sid would have found it hilarious, the way I nearly choked on my ham and cheese when Will said Nick's name. How had I found the one person on earth who didn't know about the Nick Allison event? Or maybe Will did know and just didn't care. Either way, it was agony hearing another person obsess so openly over him. He went on about Nick's hair and the cute way he turned red when called on to speak, and how he cheerfully received Madam Spencer's teasing about his sometimes tortured pronunciation. Will even asked if I'd noticed that Nick had dashed into class on Monday morning, right before Madam Spencer arrived, grabbed his stuff, and never came back. He was so enamored of Nick, he didn't notice that I hadn't come back either. Will had things wrong about Nick, too, and his sloppiness annoyed me. I had to bite my perfectionist's tongue when he pouted about how Nick was going out with Camila Jimenez. Nick wasn't going out with anyone. Will was an amateur. I knew Nick's association with Camila was a professional one. Camila's parents paid Nick to tutor her in math. The two of them met in the library after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I waited for Sid every Thursday afternoon in the library just so I could watch them from a distance. Camila had no interest in Nick or math and checked her phone every 5 seconds, often staring off into space while Nick was trying to walk her through something. I'd investigated the relationship thoroughly and had long ago rendered it harmless. I'd even seen Camila hand Nick a check. Still, I felt awful for Will. He'd found something in the real world to love, but what he'd found was mine. Nick was my secret obsession, and I wouldn't yield even a half an inch of my love to accommodate Will's. After 15 minutes, I had to fake an excuse and escape, leaving Will in his cloud of vapor and yearning. By the end of the week, I'd skirted the edges of nearly every social group on campus. Even the ag kids, still grateful about my showcasing their pig, were welcoming. People had started to take pity on me, I guess. The newspaper crew was especially nice. I gave assignments for the week and took the easiest one myself, a piece about the Feminism Club's enchilada supper. I knew I could put it off until an hour before deadline. I sent Sid hundreds of texts, some of them desperate, some of them not. I tried everything. I asked if she'd heard from Stanford. I tried to be funny, and I told her she was forcing me into Mormonism. I'd already ordered my magic underwear. As the week went on, her absence grew heavier and heavier. Before I opened my eyes in the morning, the truth would slam down on me, and I'd jump out of bed and run to the windowsill for my phone to see if the impossible had happened and Sid had texted. I thought it might get easier seeing that she hadn't, but it didn't. In the absence of being able to actually do anything, I fixated on things Sid had said over the last few weeks, trying to find any reason for why she'd leave. I remembered that walking to Life Club meeting the previous Friday, she'd said she'd wished she'd never formed it. When I joked that she was helping a lot of people extract their heads from their asses, she sighed. Seriously, all I'm doing is teaching otherwise happy people to be as stressed out and neurotic as I am. Is that what the world really needs? The way she said it, totally flip, edged with her trademark cynicism, hadn't made me think anything at the time. She was grumpy and tired. She was hangry. But now, I turned it over in my mind obsessively, stressed out and neurotic. I'd never have described Sid that way. She was a force of nature. She was a boss bitch. But was that the way she saw herself? Had the pressure she'd been placing on herself the last 4 years gotten to be too much? It seemed impossible, but everything seemed impossible. Maybe Sid had been sending me hints for years. Maybe she'd been asking for help, and maybe I was simply the world's worst friend, unable or unwilling to allow her to be anything less than the bulletproof superstar I'd come to rely on and to emulate. 1 week without her and Sid had become a genuine mystery to me. Letty's her aunt, who's a social worker. She was just the type, Letty's words, she was just the type to run away. Assaulted my thoughts until they lived there permanently, written across my brain in all caps. It bothered me to no end that I couldn't recall what I'd said in response that afternoon on the way to Life Club. I probably just laughed. I probably just told her to eat a sandwich and chill the hell out. But now? Staring at the back of Nick's head in French on Friday, I had an idea. It was the only idea I'd had all week, so it felt like a good one. I decided I'd stop texting Sid for 24 hours. I'd stop calling and leaving desperate voicemails. Maybe this would persuade Sid to contact me. Maybe she needed a little radio silence, a signal that I wasn't going to do something insane like call the police or tell Ray if she texted to let me know she was still among the living. I'd done everything else I could do. I'd written patients, I'd put up posters at school and around NMSU. I'd had the world's most awkward conversation with Isaac Chavez in which I determined he was, in fact, medium hottie. She has a system of renaming her contacts in her phone. But that he had no idea why Sid left or where she'd gone. Sid and he had flirted, that was all. Don't even, he said, putting his hands up when he realized what I was after. No way she ran away because of me. I'd done everything I could think of, and nothing brought relief. I remained a walking panic attack. When Madam Spencer put her palm on my shoulder after class on Friday morning, I swung around so fast I nearly clobbered her. I felt terrible, especially because all she'd wanted to say was that I should consider seeing the movie at the art house for extra credit. Missing a quiz had been a bad idea. She feared my A for the semester was on the line, and tonight was the end of the film's run. And so it was kind of perfect. The worst week I would now conclude with my going alone to the very movie I'd refused to go see with Nick in a previous scene. On the way home, I decided to stop by Ray's to see if he'd heard anything. He'd been so disinterested on the phone on Tuesday, it occurred to me he could know something and simply have never thought to share it with me. Also, part of me just wanted to go there, to see the graveyard and the trailer, and remember that Sid had existed in real life a week ago. When I got there, though, Ray's truck was gone, and Tanya answered the door, dressed in sweatpants and flip-flops. She looked like hell and was self-conscious about it, which brought me a modicum of happiness. "What is it?" she said, as if I was a stranger, or possibly a home invader. "Is Ray here?" I asked. I just stopped by to see if he'd heard anything. I thought of asking if Sid had received any mail, say from Stanford University, but Tanya's face wasn't open to questions. "No, we haven't. And if you hear from her, you tell her we're cutting off her phone, and we've reported the car stolen." "You reported her car stolen?" Again, I had that disorienting feeling that Sid's life was a total mystery to me, though it had been happening alongside my own all day, every day for years. What did I think happened when Sid closed the door to the trailer? Did she just disappear? In the hours we spent apart, did she simply not exist? "That's Ray's car. It's in his name." She was smug, satisfied. "That's her car," I said. I could feel the tension in my jaw. "Well," Tanya smiled, "tell her she can say that to the cops." I shook my head. It was all I could do. "Also, tell her we're moving, and I threw most of her shit away already." I wanted to pop her in the face. I tried hard to imagine what my dad would do in this situation. He'd be civil and strong. He wouldn't lose his cool. "Please just tell Ray to let me know if he hears anything," I said. I turned and walked down the stairs and heard the door close before I was halfway to my car. When I got home, my dad was in the kitchen starting dinner. I walked in and stood in the doorway and watched him for a second before he turned and looked over his shoulder. "Hey," he said, "where were you? What's wrong?" I stopped at Sid's. Tanya was there. He wiped his hands on a dish towel. "What happened?" "What would you do if I disappeared?" I asked. I was standing with my backpack still slung over my shoulder and my keys still in my hand. "Everything," he said without a beat. "Anything." "Yeah?" I said. "Of course, Miranda, yes. What happened?" I shook my head. I moved my keys from one hand to the other. I wanted to tell him about how rude Tanya had been, how seeing Sid's life in this new light had made me feel like I'd been the worst friend ever, how I was becoming more and more sure every day that she was gone for good. But before I could stop it, another question came out of my mouth. "Did you do everything to find Mom?" He grimaced. I'd caught him off guard. We simply never talked about my mom. I don't think it was a decision on his part. My father was all about talking. He'd sat me down many times over the years to have difficult conversations, including cringeworthy ones about menstruation and safe sex. And he still talked freely and openly about how he missed his own parents, who'd had children late in life and had both died relatively young before I could get to know them. Maybe it was because my mother wasn't a topic. She wasn't something we could sit down and discuss over a bowl of ice cream, which is exactly how we covered both how I prefer to acquire my first bra and the dangers, both practical and spiritual, of sending nudes. He'd read an article in the New York Times. He was practically hyperventilating. But my mother's leaving was bigger than talk. For so long, it'd been the defining characteristic of our entire existence. It was our thing. My dad tried to make it smaller. Maybe he feared we'd die beneath it, crushed by the weight of any lingering hope that she might return. Someday. Benny and Letty believed it would happen. They had faith. But my father couldn't allow that for either of us. He couldn't afford someday. So he hole where my mother should have been. Our house had changed incrementally. Her stuff disappeared, seemingly piece by piece, a book here, a photo there. And then when he took up cooking, he'd redone the kitchen, he bought new furniture. A few years ago, I'd gone to see Benny and Letty, and he painted the guest room, the room where my mother had grown up. When I returned, I checked. He'd painted over the spot behind the closet door where, as a kid, she'd scrawled, "I heart Morrissey." "Your mom didn't disappear," he said. He slung the dish towel over his shoulder and he put his hands on his hips. "Your mom's not missing, Mir. She left." "Yeah," I said. I didn't even know why I'd brought it up. "Do you think she got married again?" He dropped his head and spoke to the floor. "I don't know." The question hurt him and I was sorry. "Never mind," I said. I relieved us both of the question that logically followed. "Do you think she has more kids?" "Did Tanya say something about your mom?" "Oh," I said, no, she told me they reported Sid's car stolen and they threw away her stuff." "You're kidding me." "No," I said. "God," he shook his head, "I want you to stay away from them." I took off my backpack and sat at the table. I put my keys down. The other day, Letty said Sid was just the type of person who would run away because of her home life. I thought she was wrong, but maybe she wasn't. "It hasn't even been a week," my father shot back. "Those people, it's been 5 days. She could come back, and all of her stuff will be gone." He pointed at me. "Don't go back there. I don't want you to go back there." "I won't," I said. "I'm making pizza," he said, just as firmly, as if pizza was just punishment for our unjust world. "From scratch?" I stood and picked up my backpack and tossed it to the floor in the hallway. "Of course," he said, offended. So that's just a little part of my novel. Thank you for bearing with me while I read that. That was one of the first times. The only other time I've read from this novel was the last time I read for you guys. So this is like, thank you for letting that happen.
It's like a mediocre movie that once is really good. You go in and you're like, oh.
I was led to believe that that stand was going to be way heavier than it was.
You're expecting it to be a normal stand, it's surprisingly.
I mean, I was like, I'd lift with your legs.
Okay, so the next piece we have for you is one that's real special for us. It's called Sexteto by Victor Marquez Barrios. And years ago, Michael and I were at a chamber music camp and met Victor at this camp. He was a composer there. And he gave us this amazing piece, and we were super thrilled. And we came back, and it was really one of the first pieces we ever worked on together as a quartet. Gosh, like 7 years ago now. And we haven't played it for a really long time, so we're really excited to sort of breathe new life into it. It's in 4 movements. Victor's from Venezuela, and the first movement is entitled Raguinho, and it's based off of an observation Victor had when he moved here from Venezuela, that American ragtime music was very similar to a style from Venezuela called choro. And so he took the sort of 2 styles and sort of merged them together. So it's going to start with a sort of mysterious opening, but then it'll jump right in and you'll kind of hear that overlap. So this is the first movement of Sextet.
Thank you very much. Did anybody catch the entertainer reference in there? We didn't know about that when we started rehearsing this way back when, and we heard it and we were like, wait a second. did that really sound? The second movement of this piece, it really paints a picture, tells a story. It's entitled Sangeo. And in Sangeo, you should all imagine that you're on the beach in Venezuela. You're hearing the waves of the Caribbean Sea crash against the shore. It's really gentle and it's peaceful. You're on vacation. You hear, off in the distance, the faint strains of a band starting to come down the beach. At first, you hear these drums, you hear this rhythm pulsing. It's very, very far away. It gets closer and closer, and you hear horns and noisemakers and whistles. Pretty soon, the band comes down the beach, arrives with you. They pull you up out of your chair, and they start dancing and partying with you. You're in it. You're in the party. You're part of the band. But they've got a parade to do. So they go on down the beach, and you're left again with the peace of the sound of the waves of the Caribbean Sea and your memories of that day that band came and made you a part of their party.